Testing, testing. Can anyone hear me? Is anybody out there? Listen, my batteries are running low, but please heed this warning. You may have encountered it by now. If you haven't, then consider yourself lucky. I don't have a lot of time, but I should give you a short backstory about the eyeworms for those of you who may be unfamiliar. The eyeworm started about a week ago here. The epidemic spread across my town like a disease. Some even called it the plague. When I discovered it, I was in school. My girlfriend Renata had this thin, black, wiggly parasite in the cellar of her eye, basically the white part. She scratched and rubbed it. I could only imagine the agitation she felt. However, it wasn't in one eye. It was in both. The more attention I paid to it, the more I noticed the fucking thing moved throughout the white of her eye. At first it moved slowly, and then there was a sudden jolt, like it was swimming on the surface. Over the course of the day, it grew bigger too, inside of her eyeball. Now, again, this is in one day. But anyways, I was terrified for her, although I was more so paranoid about my own safety. I didn't want to contract what she had, so I kept my distance. Only thing is, many people in town were suffering the same eyeworms, which made it difficult to stay away from the infected. Literally everywhere I looked, someone had the parasite slithering around inside his or her peepers. In school, the playgrounds, the doctor's offices, the stores, everywhere. Ultimately, this led to mass hysteria. People went to wholesale stores to stock up on food and bottled water to bunker inside their homes. And personally, I didn't blame them. If you looked around at everyone that had it, staying inside was the best option for any person with a working brain. It was horrible. The disease spread like a wildfire. In the advanced stages of the disease, people began dying. Well, the lucky ones did, including Renata. Some people turned. The worms began to flail outward from their eye sockets, dangling like eyelashes. The person became extremely violent with an unquenchable thirst for water and an insatiable taste for human meat. Watching a person get eaten alive is the most frightening thing ever. Seeing the flesh being ripped from their bones and hearing the smacking of those lips and the screams of a helpless, uncooked main course. Absolutely the most frightening thing you may ever see is someone getting eaten alive. Especially when you know you could be next. Considering the infected never, ever attack the infected. We then stayed off of the streets. If someone was outside, you could conclude that that person was infected with the eyeworms. Only it wasn't so simple. People were ripped out of their homes in broad daylight or chased out at night into the streets so the infected could feast on them in the moonlight. My mother, the love of my life, was killed by one of our neighbors. A man that watched me grow up, a man we had over for many Thanksgivings, killed my mother because he could no longer control himself. When I fled out into the cold streets, I was scared being outside. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know who to trust or even what to do. One thing I knew for sure, if someone was running after me with malicious intent, then that person undoubtedly was infected. I hid behind the trees and parked cars as I made my way through what was a ghost town, filled with these man-eating, disease-infested subhumans. I had walked for an entire day, minding the speed for which I moved. And then, it happened while I was crouching behind a totaled car. From behind me, I heard a growl. I was hesitant to turn around, and I thought about running that very second, but I slowly turned my neck, and greatly depended on my eyeballs to catch whatever could have been there. No one was there. I exhaled, and after, I felt these two strong hands pull me from below, yanking me like it was the devil himself dragging me into hell. I screamed for dear God to save me. The hands were pulling me closer and closer to the mouth of one of the infected. His jaw was already unhinged, gaping, teeth dried with blood as he went for a bite of me. His eyes, the worms wiggled out of them, like strings blowing in the wind. I was getting closer and closer to being eaten alive, and I heard the gunshots. 2 of them went right into the skull of the infected. I grabbed my chest in a desperate attempt to breathe, but I didn't have to breathe to know that I was still alive. Knowing that teeth weren't sinking into my flesh as I screamed in a bloody massacre was proof enough. I was saved by a man named Timothy, a virologist. I was lucky enough to have stumbled into his yard and be saved by him. Only thing is, Timothy was infected with the eyeworms, and he was getting very sick with each passing second of the day. Last night, he discovered the source of the disease, although Timothy died earlier today before going national with his discovery. He told me to warn people who haven't been infected to stay away from a particular brand of water laced with the cells that would mutate inside your body, causing the eyeworms. In most cases, you die if you contract the virus. However, in the most extreme cases, like the ones I spoke of, you become violent. You forget who you are, who you were, and what you want to become. You don't think about anything except for water and eating the flesh of humans. It's the most devastating parasite I've ever seen, and I hope this is nowhere else in the world, although I know it is. It seems so simple to stop, only we didn't know how until last night. This all has happened within a week in what was my town, and the very same thing can happen to yours if you don't act immediately. Now, before my transmitter cuts off, I should tell you which brand of water to stay away from. Whoever is listening, whoever is out there, someone has to be out there. So please, please stay away from